Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Yeehaw! Howdy, y'all! Welcome to Pioneer Country. This is MTG Trailblazers.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of MTG Trailblazers. My name is Kyle. I'm here with my partner, Tommy.
How you doing?
And we're here to talk to you about the comings and goings and all the stuff about MTG Pioneer and MTG Historic. How are you this week, Tommy?
Oh no, really good. I've started to get a chance to jam a bit more Magic now that work hours have decreased a bit. So that means, being a degenerate, playing Sultai mid-range for Arena to grind up. But yeah, what about you? I heard you got a chance to play in the qualifier, right?
Yeah, I got to play in the Magic qualifier weekend. Just like you, I played Sultai ramp, Sultai mid-range, whatever you want to call it. I didn't do too well. I went 1-3, quick dropout. It was not pretty. But I tried, and it was a free event, so didn't even have to get Mythic to get into the event. So yeah, it was all right. For the past weekend's events, though, we have the Mythic Invitational, which was historic, and that was won by a Mr. Seth Manfield. Have you heard of this guy? I don't know.
The name seems to have floated around, Yeah. Amonkhet, famous for the Amonkhet Zombies deck, I think he ran.
No,
it was the black-green energy deck.
The Sultai energy. Yeah, he ran
that deck was so sweet.
Yeah, he also won the World Championship during Khan's block when that was around. So good for him. Good
for him, and it just I'd like to say that this just illustrates look, Magic is there's luck involved, but if you're good and know what you're doing, you will have consistent results. Look at Manfield, Amberchet, Javier Dominguez. So I don't know. That's just what I love about this game. It was sure, luck game. It was sure, luck's involved, but you gotta be good to do well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He himself, actually, speaking of Sultai midrange, took it down with Sultai midrange. His version of the deck heavily construed to fight the metagame, which we all kind of predicted the metagame to be Sultai, Goblins, and Jund Sacrifice, with Jund Sacrifice taking up 4 of the top 8 slots. The other decks that took up the slots were one Seth on Sultai, one person on Goblins, one person on Rakdos Arcanist, the Rakdos Sack deck, and I can't think of the last deck that was... What's that?
I'm just going through Sultai midrange, Jund Sack, Rakdos Arcanist, 3 Jund Sacrifice with a Citadel there, Mono Red Goblins, and Mono Black Gifts.
Oh yeah, Mono Black Gift, Matt Nass on Mono Black Gift. Yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah, it was actually a very stacked top 8. Everybody at least was a Hall of Famer or a pro, except for one guy. But a lot of people were rooting for him, so I guess he's known in some circles. But yeah, good job to Seth taking it down. I know our boss Spencer is probably super stoked about that. He's a big Seth fan. So yeah. So with that, we have some more news that dropped today. We have the state of the game that was announced today, and included in that for historic is
oh boy,
So yeah, we might be getting some Aetherworks Marvels and some energy coming into the format.
Sadly, I think we'll be missing one little cat. One cat
Yeah,
I don't think will be.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get cat combo.
If Felidar Guardian is printed in this set, it's going to be auto banned because it didn't work in Standard, didn't work in Pioneer. It kind of does okay in Modern, but just like we can't have that in Historic. We just ban like every other combo deck.
Yeah, if they printed in this set, then that's blatantly that they want it in. So I don't think it.
It's not gonna happen. Please don't make that happen.
But yeah, it's we're getting some good stuff. And with Historic has Ulamog, so you could be spinning to win with your Aetherworks Marvel into a great big Ulamog if you want to.
Honestly, like I'm more stoked to just see like the generic good energy cards, Attune with Ether, Whirler Virtuoso. All those cards are just fantastic in my opinion, and just can't wait to jam them.
Oh yeah, we're getting stuff like what is that? The Glint Sleeve Siphoner. He's gonna be good. I love that card.
So good against control.
Hopefully we can get the Snaky Boy, the Whining Constrictor, so we can do Abzan
Scales, yeah,
Scales.
That'd be sweet.
Might be getting a Walking Ballista in the format.
Ugh, can't say I love that. Where like the mono white deck can just go from a mid-range deck to a mid-range deck that's secretly a combo.
Yeah, right.
With healing. Like people are already like going just like, Kaladesh was infamous for bans. Like a lot of Kaladesh block. Didn't they have like 11 bans in its full on lifetime? Yeah, besides like most of the energy cards, you also had the ban like Reflector Mage, Emrakul. Yeah. Heck, even Attune with Ether was banned.
Yeah, they can't. They can't do artifact sets that well, I guess. So, well, I don't know. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to like having that set because it's super fun, but also I'm a little nervous for the state of the game.
Yeah, it'll definitely rattle some cages and ruffle some feathers. But moving on, to the main topic of this week is our Kaladesh, or not Kaladesh, our Zendikar Rising. To the main topic of this week is our Kaladesh, or not Kaladesh, our Zendikar Rising top 5. We have split our list into two. We've got one for Historic and one for Pioneer. Since we're on the topic of Historic, I figured we could go over our Historic lists first.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so starting at number 5, what do you have at number 5?
For me, I have Blood Chief's Thirst. This card, let me pull up the full definition. It is 1 black mana to destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, with kicker 2 and a black. To destroy, sorry, let me get the full description.
You want me to read it for you?
Yes, please.
That has kicker 2 and a black, and it's destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less, and then if you kick it, it's destroy any creature or planeswalker.
So for me, this is like a balance between like the uncommon from Kaladesh Fatal Push and finishing blow, that common instant that could destroy a creature or planeswalker. Yeah. This is, at least for now, like a great card until faction that can evolve into like just solid removal late game. This I could see slotting in perfectly for like a Sultai mid-range deck or any deck that just wants to like play the slow, grindy game while keeping your opponent's threats off the board. What do you think?
Yeah, I have this on my list as too. I'll talk about it when it comes up. But yeah, this card is great. I think it's the balanced Fatal Push that that Historic needs. I think it's great.
What about you? What do you have for your number 5?
So my number 5 is Feed the Swarm. Now this is 1 and a black for sorcery. It's destroy target creature or enchantment, and you lose life equal to its converted mana cost. Now the reason why I love this is because it solidifies the fact that black now gets enchant removal. And what I love about it is it also hits creatures, so it's not dead. If opponent doesn't have enchantments. This is just fantastic. I feel it's a great sideboard card. I think it's something that can help black decks. Kind of give them options against certain decks that they wouldn't have had before. The fact that it's modal in quotation marks, and that it can still hit a creature or an enchantment depending, I think it's just fantastic.
Agreed. What I like is it kind of shows it's stepping into like more of how black can technically remove anything. It just requires like payment of life. This is like a good design space I can see where it could be like fun and intuitive, but also like balanced where you need to like understand if I could destroy this like 5-mana fun and intuitive, but also like balanced where you need to like understand if I could destroy this like 5-mana creature, I'm still going to be taking a hit. So
yeah. All right, moving on to number 4. What is your number 4?
So this was the card I mentioned the last episode, Maddening Cacophony. 1 in a blue for a sorcery with kicker 3 in a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked, instead, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. This card to me is well suited to Historic especially, now that we have a lot more mill supports. Honorary mention for under this spot is the new Hedron Crab 2, just because I believe this, combined with Bruvek, the Grand Delinquent from Jumpstart, kind of just solidifies that mill is now a very viable strategy where this and Bruvik can insta-win, but it also provides like just a solid mill card so you can play like it's not a dead card. Like I could see you playing like turn 1 playing either the crab or that like 1-drop from Eldraine, and then turn 2 this, and then just like go to town with like constant milling. And considering that we have some new anthologies coming, I wouldn't be surprised if the deck gets access to maybe Jace's Phantasm, that one blue for a 1/1 flyer that gets +4/+4 if target opponent has 10 or more cards in the grave. So mill could definitely become a viable strategy in Historic, and one that I think would be like interesting to see, because we haven't ever had a outside of Eldraine draft where mill is a viable archetype. So I'd be interested to see that.
We also have the Persistent Petitioners, the one that you can have any number in your deck and tap like 4 of them to make your opponent have cards or something like that. So yeah, I mean, there could be something in that deck.
Who knows? Especially now that we have collected company, so
yeah.
Sultai Mill.
Oh yeah. So my number 4 is Turn Timber Symbiosis. Now I'm gonna have to read this one out because it's quite a doozy of a card.
Oof.
So I believe it's 4 and 3 green. Yeah, 4 and 3 green for a sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And on the back side, it's it's a tapped green land, but you can have it come in untapped for paying 3 life. So this is one of the modal double face land sorcery cards, mythics. Now, what I love about this is, like I said before, Ulamog's in the format. Look at the top 7. After ramping, go get an Ulamog, put them on the battlefield. Or go get a Craterhoof Behemoth, put them on the battlefield. There are so many biggies that you could just go grab with this and win the game, or be on the borderline of winning the game just from ramping up to 7 in some way.
And considering in Historic, that isn't too difficult, considering all the like 1 and 2 mana accelerants we have access to.
Oh yeah, there's one that got added that I'll be talking about a little bit later. But yeah,
Oh boy.
This card, and the fact that it's just a green land when you need green land, these modal double face cards are never dead, which is fantastic. And double face cards are never dead, which is fantastic. And that's
I was actually on Twitter and saw like MTG Goldfish printed out like this blue-white lands control deck, which it was just all double face modal cards. There wasn't a single land in the entire deck. It's just like 60 spells.
Wow,
but 34 of them are lands. Is it good? I don't know. We'll see.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely something I couldn't help but smile and be like, this is fantastic. we got there. Actually, funnily enough, my number 3 is a double face modal spell in the form of Hagra Mauling and Hagra Brood Pit. So Mauling costs 2 and double black for an instant. With this spell costs 1 less to cast if an opponent controls no basic lands to destroy target creature. For me, this is kind of just like, as you said, this is a spell that is a useful like 3 mana removal when you need it, just because like in Historic everyone's playing like non-basic lands. Some of our top decks, even the Muxus decks, have like non-basic lands just because they like work well, and especially with these double-faced modal cards, this gives more of incentive that this card will see play. I could see this falling into like an Esper control deck just because like it's good when you need it, lands when you don't. And as you said, it's incredibly flexible. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this reminds me of just a nice murder card that is never dead. So yeah, I think this will be a great addition to the format. Like I said, these land cards that are also spells, them never being dead, and I have to find. So I don't know. We'll have to see where that goes. My number 3 is Bloodchief's Thirst. We already talked about this card. Like I said, it's just a great card, very reminiscent of Fatal Push that could also hit Planeswalkers. That part can't be ignored. We're lucky we don't have Wrenn and 6 in the Historic format, or else this would be even better. But yeah, what's your number 2?
That for me goes to Lotus Cobra.
This is my number 2 as well.
Great, so we can both share our opinions. Lotus Cobra is 1 and a green for a snake with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any color for a 2/1. So this is add 1 mana of any color for a 2/1. So this is obviously a very powerful card for like any deck that wants to ramp, any deck that plays fetches in the form of say Fabled Passage to like help accelerate, or even just like get a mana ahead the turn it's played or the following turn. We've already seen ramp has been a very viable strategy, and this I feel just helps add to the pool of like not only mana acceleration but color acceleration, so you can pretty much have whatever color you need as long as you have the land to play the turn you need it. What do you think?
Oh yeah, we have stuff like Fabled Passage in the format, and if you even want to, you got Evolving Wilds. Like there's a lot of ways to get double mana on your turn. Even combining it with stuff like Uro is just like nutty in the forms of getting a bunch of mana when you need it. So like, I don't know. It's just a great card in my opinion. It's been known to be messed up and do broken things with like creatures. We have stuff like Ulamog. You can ramp into. You have the Turn Timber Symbiosis, like I was talking about before, to ramp into and get out early. You know, we even have the new Harrow, the 2 and a green that sack a land, go get 2 basics. You know, that's pretty broken in itself right there. So, like, I don't know. It just seems like a great card. I will see. We will see this played intrinsically throughout the format. So, yeah.
Agreed.
What is your number 1 for historic then?
Honestly, it definitely has to go to Seagate Stormcaller. I'll read this one more time just because I love this card so much. 1 and a blue for a human wizard 2/1 with kicker 4 and a blue. When Seagate Stormcaller enters the battlefield, copy the next instant or sorcery with converted mana cost 2 or less you cast this turn when you cast it. If Stormcaller was kicked, copy the spell twice instead. You may choose new targets for the copies. So, for me, this is like a perfectly reasonable pseudo Snapcaster card for like the historic and spoiler Pioneer format. Just because, unlike Snapcaster, which needs your graveyard, this can still utilize your graveyard while still getting sweet effects, and technically for potentially like not quite a discount, but more flexibility. To go over some of the cards that we have that could work, Bloodchief's Thirst. That seems reasonable to like turn 2 play this. That seems reasonable to like turn 2 play this turn and follow it up with like killing 2 creatures. Or it could be a ramp accelerant where you could do like Growth Spiral. The flexibility of this card cannot be denied just because of how many scenarios you can effectively come up with by casting this on turn 3 plus.
Oh yeah, this with Growth Spiral is pretty nutty. This with the Bloodchief's Thirst, Opt, you know, like there's a whole bunch of cards that just get pretty nutty with this card. I think, you know, and it scales into the late game, which is fantastic. So yeah, I definitely see this being a card going forward that will make a huge impact on the format. Is a fun little ditty named Omnath, Locus of Creation. So let me pull him up real quick. Omnath, Locus of Creation is a red, a green, a white, and a blue for a legendary creature elemental. When Omnath, Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then you have Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn, if it's the second time, add red, green, white, and blue. And if it's the third time, deal 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So we have, even though they'll be rotating at a standard, in historic, we have all of the M20 elementals, and we have Genesis Ultimatum, and now we have Lotus Cobra, and this can just get nutty. So I think this card is gonna have a big impact. We're gonna have 4-color ramp and 4-color control or 4-color elementals in the format, and just, you know, we'll have stuff like the Risen Reef into Omnath, put a land into play, then put another land in, and it's just like it'll get crazy real quick, and it
play this with Uro.
Oh yeah, Uro.
Just be like always get that mana right back. Generally play like a Growth Spiral into that, just like ooh.
Yeah.
Not to mention, if you're playing like tribal elementals, in historic you have unclaimed territory, so you already have
Vigorot too. So So yeah, I can definitely see elementals becoming a deck in historic due to this card. All right, that is our historic top 5. Moving on to our pioneer top 5. A few of these are going to be doubled, so it's not going to take that long to get through these. But what is your number 5 for pioneer?
So number 5 was the card that we talked about in brief, and the more I thought about and thinking of like the pioneer format, I feel like Confounding Conundrum will definitely see play in like a weird stacks kind of deck or a weird blue-white control prison style deck. To read the card, it's 1 in blue for enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. And whenever land enters the battlefield under opponent's control, if an opponent played another land, or if that player had another land enter the battlefield under the control, they return a land they control. If that player had another land enter the battlefield under the control, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. So this could definitely be an ability that is good in one version, but if you have multiple in the field, you can kind of just landlock your opponent out of the game, giving you have enough like control effects. For example, let's say you are in a position where you have your opponent pretty much like set. You can say Crucible Worlds with Field of Ruin. Do that a few times. That seems mean.
Oh yeah.
Maybe have Oogie at the top end to just be like a mono blue control deck.
Ooh.
For lands.
There you go. That sounds interesting.
And I don't know, this card just is like to me it's like it reminds me of all the issues that we had with Oath of Nissa, where this just comes down and it replaces itself. There's not really a cost to playing it. Especially if you're playing one of those slower blue-white control decks. Sure, like aggro might have a chance, but otherwise you're kind of in the clear with this card. At the very least, this is going to be a card I'm sure everyone's going to groan once they see what it can do in a larger field.
Yeah, this card answers Uro quite nicely, in that it just makes it so the ramp with Uro doesn't get out of hand, and also hurts Growth Spiral that they play on their turn. So it's yeah, it can get pretty nutty. I think this answers a bunch of things for the format. And yeah, not much else to say. I think it's it'll see some play. I figure.
What about you, my friend?
So my number 5 for Pioneer is another card we already talked about, Blood Chief's Thirst. I think this just adds another thing for mono black aggro. Adds something for Sultai Delirium, and adds something for blue black control to utilize and have an early answer to a lot of things while also being live late game, seeing as we don't have a lot of fetch lands or a lot of ways to trigger Revolt in the format. So I think this is, I don't want to say it's better than Fatal Push, because I don't think it is, but I think it's really close.
There's definitely comparisons you can make, and definitely the meta will show whether this card, honestly, I could see it happening.
Yeah. Then what's your number 4?
Number 4 is kind of an odd one for me. Archon of Emeria. 2 and a white for a Archon with flying, and 2/3. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn, and non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. So this to me is like similar to Thalia, but it tacks on the fact that each player can only play one. This to me is like similar to Thalia, but it tacks on the fact that each player can only play one spell. This could definitely be seen in, say, like an Esper Stacks kind of deck. At the very least, something to slow down more aggressive decks, and one that I'm sure, like, once we find that right combination of cards, say like, I don't know, Doom Foretold or something like that, you can really like lay down like the hurt on opponent where you're just taxing their turn, they can't play much. You could even do stuff like the Confounding Conundrum with even Mind Sensor to just like rack an opponent's like library or draws. It's a card that I can't think of the right deck right now, but I'm sure someone will be like, oh, this will be miserable for my opponent to play against.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself where this will see play, but it's a taxing effect. I'm sure somebody. My number 4 is Lotus Cobra. We've already been over this. This is just fantastic. I could see this slotting into something like Mono Green Devotion to ramp out your Nissas faster and just go nutty with that deck. Yeah, it's... I don't want to say ramp will be a thing because I've been wrong before, but I definitely think it could see play in explosive style ramp decks or landfall decks triggering off of your quick lands entering the battlefield.
Nice.
So
Number 3 for me is, I had to make a quick change because the more I thought about it, the more I realized this card is pretty sweet. Nighthawk Scavenger.
okay,
1 in double black for a Vampire Rogue for a 1+ star at 3. Ooh, that was awkward today. With Lifelink. And Scavenger's power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyard. So, off the bat, it's a Vampire Nighthawk with 1 less power when you cast it. But if your opponent has just one card in their grave, this is already Vampire Nighthawk that can scale with the game. And in Pioneer, we've already seen that Mono Black Vampires is a deck that can do things, and it definitely has the flexibility and removal to take advantage of putting stuff in your opponent's grave to advance your own game plan via Thoughtseize or creature removal via Fatal Push or Soren's +1 ability to sack a vampire. And for me, this card is just the way that it can scale and the threat it can present is something that I'm curious to see if this is what can make Mono Black Vampires show up a bit more considered Mono Black aggro.
yeah, I could see this being, this does scale. I could even see this being played in regular Mono Black aggro. It's like everybody keeps calling it the Tarmogoyf of the format, so I don't know. Well, Tarmogoyf was good when it was in Standard, and we kind of need something along the lines of it. So I don't know. We'll see how this is going to play out. So my number 3 is a Marius Call. Now, this is another one of the double-faced modal spells, and this one is 4 and 3 blue, or 3 white, sorry. It create 2 4/4 angel warrior creature tokens with flying. Non-angel creatures you control gain indestructible this turn. Now, I don't think that this can go in a creature deck. I think this goes in a blue-white control creature deck. I think this goes in a blue-white control deck as a finisher. As you know, we had stuff like Entreat the Angels in blue-white miracles, and you know that only made like 2 to 3 angels at a time. Yes, this is nothing like that, but I think that this being a land at the same time lets blue-white control play this and not feel bad about having no other threats in their deck. I think this card is just fantastic for that style of deck, and you know we've already got stuff like all the Teferis and all that, so I think this slots right in there. What do you think?
I see where you're going at, and I think the biggest part of this that would appeal to any control player is the fact is you don't even have to play the land. You're putting it there just a tapped white source or an untapped white source when you need it. And if you do manage to get to that late game to just cast that, putting two flying bodies while potentially making any of their current threats indestructible, that's a very real threat as a finisher. I'm definitely curious to see where it fits in, and it would be cool to see this just show up in blue-white control as maybe a 1-of, maybe a 2-of. But like I said, there's not really much of a cost for those decks, is there?
No, It's not really a cost. It's just places some lands in the deck. Just have a threat at the end. All right, what is your number 2?
I seem to be on the Tarmogoyf rant because my next one is Magmatic Chandler.
Okay.
1 in red for a 1/3 human wizard. As long as there are 4 more instant and or sorceries in your graveyard, Chandler gets +3/+1. With tap, discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, and choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. So, off the bat, this card is potentially a 2-mana 4/4. The closest comparison you can make for Pioneer would be, say, Grim Flayer from Shadows over Innistrad. But this card gives something that spells decks could definitely use for late game plays, that being not only card advantage through a sort of looting effect, but card looting or selection, letting you pick whichever card you might need to help out your situation. And due to the wording, you can play lands off this ability, not just spells.
Yeah, it can. I think this goes well in Is It Phoenix in the format. I think this gives you a reliable way to discard your Phoenixes while also being. I think this goes well in Is It Phoenix in the format. I think this gives you a reliable way to discard your Phoenixes while also being able to having a card draw, and then late game it's a beater in itself. So yeah, I think that this card is well suited for like an Is It Phoenix style blue-red spells deck. Moving on to my number 2, I have Skyclave Shade. Now this is 1 and a black for a creature shade, I want to say. Yeah. It's got kicker 2 and a black, and then Skyclave Shade can't block. If Skyclave Shade was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And it has landfall whenever a land enters the battlefield. If Skyclave Shade is in your graveyard and it's your turn, you may cast it from your graveyard this turn. So I love this card in the Sultai Dredgeless Dredge. Really great for that style of deck. Being able to bring back things but with your land drops and on a reliable without having to exile. It also scales into the late game by becoming a 5/3. Yeah, I think that this card is just great for that deck, and I think something going forward, maybe even seeing it in mono black aggro alongside Scrap Heap Scrounger.
I was actually thinking this card could potentially replace Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, like,
I think doing it at the end phase on your opponent's end phase is kind of better than having to do it on your turn. But I can see where you're coming from.
Body is relevant, but regardless, it's a good option to have, and I would not pass this card up, and I would not be surprised to be being on the other end of the table of this card and just going, oh god.
I also thinking about it, this could be good in like a blue-black control as just the lone threat in a blue-black control list, because it turns their land drops back into creatures. So 5/3 can close a game real quick if you've got the control over the board.
That is true, and especially if you play some of those double modal cards, you can just like get a little bit more mileage out of some spells or lands depending on what you need.
Yeah,
I can see where you're coming from.
So what is your number 1?
I mentioned it for Historic, and I'm going to die on this hill for Pioneer. Seagate Stormcaller is one of the best cards that we could possibly hope for the Pioneer format. It's whatever we had in Historic, those spells are just expanded in the Pioneer format, where we have Fatal Push, Lightning Strike, so many like great removal spells, so many good counter or potential counter spells. It really just depends on like what the deck wants to do, and this card can pretty much slot into it. I'm interested to see this in, say, like an Is It Phoenix deck, or just any blue-red spells deck, but I'm sure there's much more to be had. Maybe Grixis Control.
Yeah, I have this as my number 1 as well. I think this card is just fantastic in the format. It's good for something like blue-black control. to give your cards forking effects, and while it's not like exactly like Snapcaster, I believe it's on the same diaphragm as Snapcaster. I think it can play the same kind of role. Yeah.
Definitely. And the point, or what I love about it is just like, unlike Snapcaster, it doesn't depend on the graveyard.
Yeah.
That to me, like,
Oh, yeah.
especially in Historic, we have so much good graveyard hate right now that
Yeah.
this seems like another way that, like, you could have a deck that uses its graveyard, but this is a different way you can go at it. To just be like, oh, you play Leyline Void? Well, that's fine. I'll just cast spells to impact the board.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thinking this will slot real well into the format. I could even see this being played in Modern, possibly, but
We'll see. At the very least, it's not as backbreaking to Modern or Pioneer as it would be for Modern, which I'm sure Snapcaster left plenty of. It's a good card for Modern. I can't even imagine playing that in Standard.
Yeah.
Oof.
Anyway, that is our top 5 for both Historic and Pioneer. Moving forward to the weekend, I have the CFB Pro Showdown that I'm going to try and play in. It's an interesting single elimination event, so it's going to be new standards, so hopefully we find something good to play in that and run hot in that event. What about you, Tommy?
Just trying to build a few more Pioneer decks, get ready for like when Paper Magic finally emerges. I'm also really just trying to figure out like writing some articles for some of those decks, especially some of the more fringe ones. Boros Feather Aggro, Is It Insult, and my dear friend, Is It Phoenix?
Gotcha. All right.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yeah.
For the CFB Pro Showdown, isn't the end boss this time Reed Duke again?
Yeah.
LSV for like every single showdown so far.
If you're gonna have an end boss, why not have one of those two, right?
I think they've made it a little too hard just because no one's been able to win against them yet. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is the time for someone to beat them. We'll see. All right.
Well, wish you luck regardless.
Yeah, and that about wraps us up for this week, and we will see you guys next time.
Later.